You're listening to The Dan Nicholl Show.
Well, this week on The Dan Nicholl Show, a slightly starstruck host, which I shouldn't be because I know my guest really, really well. And yet things have changed a little since the last time I saw her, because joining me at the brand new Jonsson Workwear store in Durbanville for a special show with Jonsson Workwear is one of the true superstars of South African rugby, just back from the Women's World Cup, where she left a bruised trail of opponents in her wake and was part of this team that captured the country's imagination, jettisoned us into a first quarter-final and set South Africa alight. Babalwa Latsha, I could not be happier to have you with us. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here and so happy to see you again.
It feels that it's not that long since we've seen each other, and yet it feels like you're in a different world entirely. Because if I think that back to the very first time we met, having you on the old show on TV, and there was still a time where women's rugby was this kind of little oddity in the corner, and it was smiled at politely, and let's let the women go and play their rugby and then we'll get on to the proper stuff. And I fast forward to the stretch over the Women's World Cup where I had my 9-year-old son rushing us to get home so we didn't watch the game. And I had people at dinner parties asking about the score and do I know the players and wanting to know a bit more about it. Suddenly, the world of women's rugby, after a lot of time put into it, but you've gone over that edge and suddenly it's this wonderful brand new space.
Yeah, how awesome. The tide has changed beautifully for South African women's rugby. I think, like you rightly put, that the last time we spoke, it was not really there, but I think the growth has been tremendous. And I think, the general public is now starting to understand what women's rugby is, and they're beginning to love it for what it is, that it's an entity on its own, and it speaks to various audiences, like a new 9-year-old kid to a 6-year-old man. And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? It transcends race, gender, age. It's a magical thing to experience. And I think this current World Cup was the best thing that could ever happen for Springbok women's rugby.
You've always been so positive about the sport you love, the sport you play so well. You've been a trailblazer, getting over to Europe, carving out your own path and inspiring so many others. But for all the upbeat outward appearance, were there doubts inside at points in the career that, is this ever really going to catch fire? Is women's rugby ever really going to get the place in the sun that it deserves?
I'm so glad I stuck it out. Throughout the years, I've been in it for about a decade now, and in its budding stages, of course, those doubts would creep in, and I would ask myself these questions: is it really worth it? I have a law degree. I could be practicing law. Why am I even involved in this? But there's a deep rooted passion in my heart for the sport, what it does for young people, young women in particular, but also, or more importantly, is what it had done for me. So I just couldn't see myself doing anything else other than committing to the sport, committing to its growth, and trying my utmost best to be a positive point of reference and of positive influence and of good contribution to the sport and to the people involved in it, to see it through. And I think finally it's the momentum has built so well that we are able to compete on the global stage and carve out our own individual paths, while obviously, building the brand of South African women's rugby, but as well as just ensuring that it's visible, making ourselves visible as well, because it's so important that we're able to reach younger people, younger generations. And I think in order for that to happen well within the Springbok women's space, is that we also allow ourselves to be positive role models, if I may put it like that.
I think that's part of what I suspect the answer to my next question would be, in that what has changed in that decade, you've got so many players who are machines on the field, but also great people off it. You've got belief in yourselves, but there also has been more belief in you as a team, in women's rugby as a sport, than I have seen. What for you, though, has really been the key in shifting the balance, in tipping things, in getting us now to a point where we can stand and say, yep, women's rugby is definitely now on the path to where it should be?
I think the key to that has been an all-hands-on-deck approach. I would say understanding what is required to get the game over that line, and how best we can align with things like sponsorships and media visibility, because all those things do play a role. And I think because the sport has grown so well, I think the penny has finally dropped that it's so important to support women's rugby on all fronts, from viewership to sponsorships to it being visible. So those things are all important in my view, to keep women's rugby where it is now and beyond, but actually to keep the momentum going, to keep it growing for as long as possible. So those things are really important. People like yourself, this conversation is that essentially is key to that.
Oh, this conversation is purely me wanting a selfie with you and having to do an entire show to justify it. No, it's a show that's going to speak to so many people because women's rugby is now very much in the limelight. Take us forward to this Rugby World Cup that you've just been at. When you look at that opening game with a sold-out stadium, when you look at you guys playing in front of crowds, there were times that you will remember where there were more people playing in the game than there were actually watching it. That was a stark reality of games that you played. Now you're playing in front of thousands of people. Were there moments when you stopped for a second while some poor opponent caught her breath and you looked around and went, "Geesh, this is real"?
Yes, absolutely. I've had quite a few of those moments, actually, and I was just in awe, but also embracing how far women's rugby has come. And I remember us playing somewhere in PE at some random stadium with a handful of people to the global stage now, with thousands of people cheering us on and actually wanting to see what we're about. And for me, it's difficult to put it into words. It was just a sense of pride first, and being content in understanding that this is it, This is what we've been talking about 10 years ago, and it's finally happening. This is what we've been, trying to figure out how to do here in South Africa and abroad as well, for ourselves, for Springbok women, and it's finally happening. And I think what makes it even more special is that you're sharing this moment with 50, 23, even 36 other phenomenal women in your team or on your team who are just as proud, who are embracing the moment with you as well, who also understand how long it's been. They understand the struggle, they understand the journey of how much we'd had to grit it out in order for us to be able to be reaping the benefits of it now. And a person that comes to mind is Cindy Boy, our captain who's retired in that particular World Cup. And, to see her take in that moment as well is just something that really touched my heart and just continues to inspire me.
The fact that you immediately reference one of your teammates speaks to what I see from the outside, quite similar to what we see in the men's team, where this sense of unity and shared purpose, and this is a group of really good friends who also just happen to be an exceptional sports team, is what I see on the outside, what's on the inside as well, that you are this really close-knit group who've got that sense of, we're in this together, we're going to make this work together.
Absolutely. We love each other. And I think that's at the core of it. You'll hear our coach Sway's talking about, love for the game and love for ourselves and love for our country. I think at the foundation of it is that we love what we do and we love one another. Therefore, we are able to respect each other and understand what it is that we're doing and what we're trying to achieve, and understand that it's more than just us. It's more than just, a Cindy Boy or a Babalwa Latsha wearing the Springbok women's jersey, but it's about the whole country. It's the whole nation. It's the young girls and boys who are standing in front of the television with their parents and actually saying, I want to do that. I want to be like that. Or just, being inspired. And it's really heartwarming for me to have been part of that for such a long time. But really, it's just a bunch of phenomenal women who love what they do, who love each other, and who just want to show the world what South African women's rugby is about.
Which is exactly what you did. And game one of the World Cup went according to plan. It was game two we were all watching so closely. And again, I go back to the images, the vision I have of seeing the pure joy across the team after you'd completed that second victory. You pretty much knew you were then into the quarterfinals. And it was a combination of, yes, the delight that you've done it, but almost that touch of disbelief. Is this real? Have we really got here? And that's what came across. What was it, that sort of pinch me moment?
Yeah, absolutely. It truly was. It was as if we were in some type of dream of sorts. But we were really happy for our team, and just really happy about the journey and how far we'd come as a group. But also, again, being in the moment, feeling the emotions, feeling what it's like, hearing the crowd and taking in and soaking in all of that. But I think in the same breath, the reality of it was that, yes, we're in the quarterfinal, but we still need to play in the quarterfinal. But yeah, it's a pivotal moment for a lot of the girls on the team.
You're always very good at bringing everybody else into the shared success, but it was a particularly special tournament for you. You've been part of the leadership group for a long time, and you got to captain your country at a Rugby World Cup. When you run onto the field as the leader on the day, that's a really special thing to be able to do.
It is a special thing to be able to do, and I'm really grateful that I was given the opportunity and the privilege, gosh, the honor as well. It's something that I think I'll remember for the rest of my life, because it was my first run out as captain at a World Cup. So it is just as special for me. But more than anything, my heart was just filled with gratitude to think that I could be able to do that. Because leadership looks different for different people. And I think for me to be able to lead my team or our team out at a World Cup was just a truly incredible moment, unforgettable. I think when I'm old and grey, it's a memory that I'll look back to very fondly.
I remember years ago sitting on a stage in Philadelphia with Brian Hawkins, the great Eagles player, and Brian off the field is an absolute gentleman. He'll help old ladies across the street. He'll give change to a person needing a meal. He's just a delightful person. And he speaks openly that he goes on the field and this red mist descends and he turns into something completely different. And this for me is you, Babalwa, because every time we spend time together, you're just the loveliest, most wonderful, happiest person. And then I see you on the field and I get slightly terrified thinking, what if I one day say something to upset her? She could kill me in a second. Because when I see you out there, there's a different beast. What happens that takes my good, happy, smiling friend Babalwa into this absolute beast of a rugby player out in the field?
Wow. I think it's a switch that one is able to turn on and off. I think there are two totally different Babalwas that are required at different times. Generally, I'm a really very mellow, low-key, happy type of person. But on the field, it's on. I'm able to make that switch, and I'm in the zone, to put it that way. And I just enjoy it so much that I don't even think about it. It's typical of most props, I'd say, maybe, but I've never really thought of it that way, to be honest. But yeah, it's a very important switch because it's high performance at the end of the day. You're a professional sports person, and performance is key to that. And so being able to switch that beast mode on at the right time, being mentally prepared as well is really important. But yeah, no, I promise I will not hurt you or anyone.
Look, if I say anything to upset you, just let me know. I've never met a prop forward who doesn't revel in a monster scrum, who doesn't revel in catching an unattended scrum half and burying them. And you do seem to get exactly that joy, that traditional South African love of the physical contact.
It's the best thing in the world. It's liberating. I cannot think of a better feeling of demolishing your opposing prop in a scrum, or that beautiful hit that crushes the person's ribs. It sounds, just the sound of it. It's amazing. I promise I'm not a violent person, but it's amazing, man. I mean,
so most people, it's the sound of bird song in the morning. For Babalwa, it's an opposition prop forward backpedaling and squealing at the same time.
Best thing ever.
And look, it happened a fair amount because you've got this really impressive pack as part of a really impressive team, and it got you up to the quarterfinal. I think we all knew it was going to be a tough game, and in the end, up to halfway, really, really good effort. It just didn't quite work out. But what I loved at the end of that game was, yes, you were genuinely upset that you lost. You're athletes. You don't like to lose. It's in your DNA. And yet there was still such pride and unity in understanding that you'd gone further than any South African women's rugby team had come close to before.
Yeah, totally. Gosh, what a time! What a time it was for our team. We were well prepared, I'd say, for that particular game. The mastermind, Swayze de Brain, had a plan, which is why you'd see a 2-man line out, a 15-man line out. Next thing, a maul from a scrum. So ours was to represent South African women's rugby as best as we could, and to display the greatest brand of women's rugby, South African women's rugby ever, true to the South African style of play. We didn't want to deviate from anything. And for the first half, it worked. I can positively say that it worked because we relish a scrum any day. And so we were playing towards our strength more than anything else. But truly, it was about, again, celebrating how far we've come as a team. We went where no other team, South African women's team, had gone before. And that for us, in as much as the result didn't go our way, but it was worth celebrating. And it was so good to be in a huddle with the Black Ferns, celebrating the beauty of what women's rugby is. Yes, it's a competition. Yes, we try to kill each other, but at the end of the day, it's the beauty of it all. And it's the beauty of women's rugby and the love and shared passion and camaraderie behind it.
It's still something that the non-rugby player will never entirely get their head around. You and I played a bit of rugby. I still can't fully understand it. 80 minutes of bloodlust and attempted homicide, and an hour later you're having a beer together and your best mates. It's one of the real beauties of the game of rugby.
That is what makes rugby, men or women's rugby, special. It's unlike any other sport. And you just have to be a good human being to be able to express that and to be able to appreciate that. And I think that the women's rugby space is filled with awesome people. It's filled with amazing human beings who understand the power of it all. Of course, we can kill each other, like I said, but at the end of the day, this is a beautiful celebration of female athletes who are phenomenal.
Was there also an element in your celebration of the Black Ferns after that game of, yes, one side's lost, the other has won, but rugby in the women's game has won so much? Because this tournament, I felt, took the women's game to another level entirely, from the crowds, from the quality of play, from the interest, from the media focus. It was a huge step up from tournaments past.
I think this particular World Cup is the best one I've been to. This one made my third, and I can 100% say that it's had such an unprecedented impact on the game itself globally, and how people perceive it, how it's received, how it's appreciated, how players themselves are now more confident to tap into their characters and to tap into what makes them unique. Abby Dow from the Red Roses loves knitting, and she's making that a thing. And there's Ilona Ma. There's like players who are super. Well, there's Babalwa Latsha as well, please. There are players who are superstars and are embracing that. It's nothing to shy away from, and we now understand how big the impact of it. The World Cup, the Women's World Cup final right now is sold out, and that in itself is unprecedented. So, I think it blows my mind when I think about it, how well women's rugby has done throughout the years until now.
The success of all of this is important for now. It's far more important that it's sustained, that it continues, that it grows, that it builds. From a South African perspective, when you guys got back, I happened to be flying into Cape Town moments before, and I was very excited as I walked out of the airport and discovered 30 camera crews, the deputy mayor, some local ministers. I thought, well, this is how the host of a major podcast should be greeted when he arrives back in Cape Town, and then discovered, no, it's because the women's Springboks are 10 minutes behind you. Please get out the way, you're blocking our view. And there was this huge Cape Town welcome party for you. So there's clearly the excitement and the interest. Has that sustained beyond the return? And do you genuinely look forward and think, you know what, the fire has caught, it is going to burn brighter, and we really are on the front foot now?
I definitely think that the fire is going to burn brighter. The girls received a hero's welcome on our way back. That in itself is testament to that there's recognition. And for us, recognition looks all kinds of things. It looks like camera crews. It looks like a hero's welcome. It may simply look like us having this conversation. So I think that the fire is definitely there, and what the future looks like is important, that we are able to have a say in that, we're able to determine it for ourselves, and we are also able to be involved in it. So off the back of the success of the World Cup, we're looking at new professional leagues from next season onwards. We're looking at a brand new format of the WXV competition with home and away games. So there definitely has been positives off of the back of the World Cup, and I am so excited to see what the future looks like and how best we can and keep it sustainable and keep the fire burning.
And your belief in all of this is shown very clearly by the decision you've made that instead of returning to Europe, and I suspect there was quite a queue of people with large checkbooks hoping to lure you north, instead you've decided, no, South Africa is going to be home. I want to be part of this next chapter, and I want to make sure South African rugby grows with me part of it.
I'd love to contribute towards it as best as I can. I think my experience being abroad for the past 3 years has been phenomenal. I've learned so much, and I think it's important that we cross-pollinate those experiences. I think in order for us here in South Africa to grow our sport as well, it's important again to cross-pollinate, to know what it's like to play at high level, at high intensity every week, like in the PWR, like in Europe, here at home as well. And it's exciting. I'm so glad that I made the decision not to go back abroad, but stay home, contribute as best as I can to what the next season will look like for our domestic league, because I think that we are not short of talent at all. There's so much talent in South Africa, and I think it's time that we also stood up and started competing with the rest of the world, because our next World Cup is in 2029, and we would love to be, or we will be, or I'd love to as well, but we definitely will be competitors in that one. I think we'd love to go much further than beyond the quarterfinal.
So what needs to happen then for wow, they've made the quarterfinals for the first time we're expecting you to, and you should be in the semis as well. This is the level we now believe you to be. What needs to change between now and then?
Well, I think the important thing is to keep the momentum of the World Cup, to put things in place like we are going to in the next season, having our first professional Super League at the Bulls Daisies as, being at the forefront at professionalizing women's rugby in South Africa. I think that's key, because then you retain your talent, you are able to have high intensity, highly competitive games every week, which then raises the skill set, it raises the competitive edge, but it also then raises the bar in terms of what is world class for South Africa, because we're competing with the world, not just ourselves. And of course, again, keeping the momentum from a perspective of, having games on TV like they are, which is amazing, something unheard of about 5-10 years ago, which is great. Having the conversations around, women's rugby and women's sport across the board, not just rugby, and normalizing it, making it a part of every day. Easily turn on the TV and women's rugby is on, or the netball is on, or Banyana on. That brings pure joy to my heart. So I think, just off of the top of my head, get those things right, like we are in the process of doing. I think the sky is not even the limit for South African women's rugby.
It does all seem to be falling into place, which is fantastic. You mentioned the Bulls Daisies, and they've very much led the way in South Africa with the professional side of women's rugby. Is it now a realistic proposition if you're a young woman in South Africa coming out of school, you've got some talent, I could become a qualified lawyer and try and play rugby part-time, the Babalwa story, or no, actually, I'm going to give rugby a full go, and this is a profession that I can sustain myself in, succeed in, and not have to worry that I need to be waiting tables or working somewhere else to try and make this career work?
Well, unfortunately, that is the stark reality for some of us. Some have started like that. But I think how the landscape has changed now, it's actually a viable option. One can say, I'm a full-time rugby player. This is my job. I don't have to do any other work. Think in that area, there is still a bit of work to be done. But the key thing now, and the lovely thing is that there are pathways, which there were none before. There is a way to get into it. There are pathways to actually becoming it and seeing it, rather than just thinking of it as just, some far off dream. It's actually attainable. It's doable now. And I love that for young girls, that playing rugby can be a career. It is a full-time profession.
It's a long overdue, but no less exciting space to be in. And it's a large space of what you do, but it's not all that you do, because aside from being a qualified lawyer and being married to a lawyer, I'm generally terrified of lawyers, whatever they do. But you've also got so many other spaces you put time into. And I know our mutual friend Sivengezi, who inflicted himself in his Speedo on crowds throughout the tournament, has been doing a lot of work that you've been supporting, his period poverty campaign. And I know that's the kind of space where Babalwa, the activist, Babalwa, the community-minded person, has a very strong focus on and belief in.
100%. It's a deep-rooted passion of mine to be able to contribute to our society positively, to be able to uplift communities and individuals. And I have decided to pour my heart into being one of the directors of the Menstruation Foundation, but also a very proud Laureus ambassador as well. Hey now. I totally love that. I think it's so important that we lend our voices, our time towards important causes. And I'm truly, truly passionate about that, because I think that young people are the future of this country. And if you are able to make their lives easier, to uplift them, to empower them, ultimately empowering the whole nation. And so it really just warms my heart to be able to see a smile on a young person's face, because they believe in themselves a little bit more, because they are empowered a little bit more. It truly makes me happy.
Well, we do share the honor of being Laureus ambassadors, and it's such a terrific platform to be part of. And I think it is, exactly as you said, is that reward of seeing a young child who, especially in South Africa, we have a lot of young people who have very, very little other than challenges, and yet somehow throwing a ball around or picking up a bat or just playing a sport together transfers them to another world entirely and gives them just that little bit of hope that so often just is not otherwise there.
The key thing there is hope. It's so important to keep it alive. I don't think I would be where I am right now had I lost hope. It's so important to keep that hope going, because then it allows the young person to see beyond their circumstances. It opens up their eyes, even their heart, to understanding that there's so much better out there and they deserve it. And so hope is important to me.
Laureus Sport for Good Foundation definitely benefiting from your support. So is the Menstruation Foundation. Not benefiting is the South African legal community, because you decided to go for rugby, and thank God you did. But I wonder, do you ever in moments sit back and think, what if I'd taken the left fork instead of the right? What if I decided, yep, you know what, this rugby stuff is fun, but I need a proper job and I'm going to settle down and become Babalwa the lawyer? Do you ever wonder where that might have taken you?
Fortunately not. And the reason for that is that I decided to follow my heart, and I'd never doubted that decision, not for a single day, because I'm doing what I love. Yes, I love potentially being in the legal space as well, but not more than playing rugby, and not more than being in the sporting space, because there's so much impact that I am able to do or to contribute towards in that space, and it feels right. That's the most important thing, that it aligns with my spirit, my heart, and my mind. It doesn't feel like it conflicts with anything, and so that is how I know that I made the right decision, because I feel like I'm walking in the path that I'm supposed to be.
I don't think anybody would disagree, with the exception of a number of opposition props who would very much have preferred you have to stuck with law instead of playing rugby. But we're very glad that you do. And the rugby career has still got a way to go. How do you see the Babalwa Latsha story over the next few years? And what for you is the realistic dream on the horizon?
Well, realistically, from a rugby perspective, the next World Cup is something that I'm looking forward to. And preparing for the next cycle of a World Cup actually starts when the one you're in ends. So there's that. There is competing in our domestic league and contributing as well as I can towards that. That's the short term of it. But long term, I would really love to contribute as much as I can to the growth of women's rugby, whatever form that may look like. And hopefully someday putting that law degree to good use within the women's rugby space, because I think there is some good alignment there. I think sports and law can and do go together, especially since we're looking at professionalizing our league fully. So I think there's a market there as well. But more than anything, I'd just love to continue being true to myself and doing what I love, and again, contributing to my community and my nation as best as I can.
When we sat down, I was thinking when we get to the end of the conversation, I must remember to tell Babalwa that Swayze de Bruin might be the coach now, but I can see you being a terrific coach in 20 years' time. I still think that could be the case, but I've shifted slightly. I'm seeing Babalwa Latsha, President World Rugby, on the horizon. Qualified lawyer, star international player, and a pretty fierce competitor in all regards. I think that's where I'm putting my money on.
Let's put that in the universe out there. We need to be where the decisions are made. So let's put that out in the universe.
Before I let you go and go and bench press trucks or eat handfuls of raw meat or whatever else it is that prop forwards do when they've got some spare time, you've had incredible support and you've won over so many South Africans who, there are a lot before this World Cup didn't have a clue who you were, and now they're posters of you up on bedroom walls, as there should be. What's your message to a South African sporting public about who this women's team is, where they're going, and how we can continue to be part of this remarkable journey?
Well, the first thing, sort of the bat would be to say thank you for their support and the continued support, especially at the World Cup. We felt the love so much. The messages poured in, the support was tangible, and we're really grateful for that. And I think we can only go further with the support of South Africans and rugby lovers and sports lovers. And the future for South African women's rugby is incredibly bright. And I think that we can reach so much incredible heights with the backing 100% of the nation.
Well, I think I can say quite comfortably, speaking on behalf of all South Africans, because I'm on a WhatsApp group with them all, we are right behind you. And whether it's the local women's league, which is going to really jettison into new territory next year, upcoming internationals, it's such wonderful growth. And I go back to the very selfish part, the very personal part, where when I'm sitting on a couch with my 9-year-old son and my 11-year-old daughter, and I see how much pleasure you give them as they're cheering you on and they're watching you score that try against New Zealand, and they're seeing South African colours on a global stage. They don't care that it's men or women. They're just supporting a great South African team. And I love that element that you've transcended so many boundaries already, although with a few more to come. So thank you from the Nicholl family. But thank you also from a really proud South Africa. It was such a cool World Cup. You were such a big part of it. And I'm just as excited that there are so many more chapters to come.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that.
And before you do go, I also have to say thank you because you very kindly bought me one of your jerseys, which is it's going to cost me a fortune in insurance, but it's going straight to the pool room and going to be mounted up at home really proudly. So thank you so much. And here's to many more conversations as this women's rugby journey continues to gather pace.
Thank you so much.
So there we go. From the new Jonsson Workwear store in Durbanville, one of the stars of Rugby World Cup 2025, ferocious prop forward, absolutely terrifying on the field, anything but off it, and giving us a very vivid illustration of how much excitement there still is to come from women's rugby, a very special guest, Babalwa Latsha.
You're listening to The Dan Nicholl Show.